Hi there all, thank you for joining our session today. We will be kicking off in just a minute. We've just got quite a good number of attendees on so far, but just letting a few more, just the last ones just jump on. So if you bear with us just a minute or two, and then we'll be kicking off as well. Thanks. Okay, I think we'll actually get started. I think we've got a good number of members joined already. So welcome, and again, thank you all for joining us today. My name's Phil Mercer. So just as a quick way, the session today is going to be on application security controls. So Pete, and I'm joined by Pete and Heinrich. And Pete, if you kindly just jump onto the next slide, please.
I think it crashed on Pete's side. Just demo gods.
So we were playing with this before because we actually had this last time with Peter. Unfortunately, that I think he GoToWebinar doesn't tend to like his system, so we'll just bear with him a moment. But what I'll do is I'll just run us through the first bits just while he's getting that bit sorted out. But essentially, so in respect to today's session, so joined by Peter Egerton and also Heinrich Pelser from the team. Heinrich, you maybe like to just quickly say hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
Go ahead.
So there's a minor delay there.
Yeah.
You go, Phil. I'll stop. Sorry.
Technology is always centre to us all, isn't it? So essentially, I was just going to say, Heinrich and Pete both join us essentially in the roles as technical kind of expertise relevant to the panel today. So myself, Phil Mercer, I tend to say, I'm always technical, but not the techie. So I'm actually the managing director at PowerOn, but I do like to keep a very hands-on role with customers. So very often a helping guide thoughts, ideas, and bring some of the commercial aspects to the technical choices as well. Heinrich acts as a business consultant for us, so really kind of helping again guide customers, but really deeper into the technical side to kind of support information. And Pete is one of our senior principal consultants and Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, so really kind of an expert in endpoint management and the different plethora of Microsoft kind of capabilities that kind of associate to that. The session for today is a Q&A. So really just want to say that, this is, we put these on really kind of at the start of some of the changes as we were all kind of working through an experience with the intent of looking to share knowledge and help guide and provide really just an ability for people to be able to get answers to questions that they might be trying to seek. So we picked a couple of the kind of primary areas where we were seeing engagement and requirements from customers and thought it'd be good really to be able to just help share knowledge. So in that, the session for today is really not intended to be any type of a sales session. Really it's around trying to provide, a good range of knowledge and opportunity to really kind of put your questions forwards of items that you might be trying to tackle at the moment or otherwise. To that point, what we're going to be really looking to cover off today is, the topic in the session is going to be very much around looking at one element around application security controls within the overarching piece. So we're thinking really now around with kind of different access models, whether it be remote working or otherwise, of course, but how do we really start to try and bring, additional levels of security and control to the access to services that our users are having. What we'll do in terms of the normal format for this type of a session is we'll start by giving effectively a bit of a kind of a 1,000-foot view, if you will, but certainly like kind of an overview of some of the topics and areas that we're kind of looking at for today, with the intent of that being to provide, you know, a decent amount of information and kind of context around the subject, and hopefully answer a number of questions that, you know, we've already received from parties and otherwise, but also really help set the scene as we then move into kind of like the open Q&A panel. So the purpose really for today is the open Q&A, but we obviously want to help give some of that context and some of that awareness. So what I would really like to do as well is just encourage you to share your questions with us. You know, we appreciate that sometimes on webinars and other bits, it can be sometimes restrained, shall we say, in terms of asking questions from different audience members. But the purpose of today is, as I say, very much an open session. So all of us are here, you know, yourselves included, to look to get that knowledge. So one of the best ways of doing that is obviously sharing your kind of situation, so that obviously typically is quite reflective across a wide range of businesses as well. So people have those similar challenges. So I do really encourage you to share your questions with us. If you'd like to just basically drop those into the question panel within the setup. Now, what we will typically do is essentially hold those questions to the Q&A most likely, as we like to then kind of really be able to discuss those and work those through. Although we might, jump into those at the point where we're starting to go through some of the content, if that's felt to be, kind of a good applicable side as well. But yeah, please do ask your questions. It obviously will help. We have had a number of questions already come in prior to the session as well, so there's a bits and pieces that we'll run through from those that have put those forward earlier. But obviously, like I say, not to keep saying it, but do please share your questions with us. But just to double check, I think, Peter, you might be back online.
Not quite. You might just have to share the slides, if that's okay, Phil, and then I can run through those, and then we can allow Peter.
Bear with me just a moment then while I do that. So I'll just make myself presenter. And then if then let me know if you can see that, Heinrich, just to confirm.
I can, yep.
And you're probably seeing the wrong view at the moment. So if I swap that back, you now see in the main slide set, yep?
Yep.
Great, okay. So I'll jump through the little bits that I just quickly covered off. And just as I was mentioning there, I suppose just to reinforce on the agenda, we'll be covering off that kind of overview, but we will also be doing some demos and just taking you through some of the elements, and then we'll kind of dive into the Q&A. But what I will do is I'll hand over to you, Heinrich, and we'll start off with some of the Intune application management.
Thank you very much, Phil. So as Phil alluded to, guys, we're just waiting for Mr. Egerton to hop on towards the tail end anyway, just to kind of run through and just to provide some additional context to some of the bits and pieces that we're talking about. So the application management space, especially recently, has become more and more kind of prominent for organizations, and I think it's been on the roadmap, as well as sort of been forming sort of quite contentious discussion points in how organizations provide these services to their end users across a sort of plethora of options, devices, and so on. So one of the most common things you'll see if you've ever worked in IT, and I'm sure it's something that rings true for all of us, is that obviously end users need apps, and apps obviously need those end users. And off the back of that, these applications, the expectation these days from just business, as well as then kind of how people want to work, is the ability to have sort of secure access from anywhere, on any device, at any time, so to speak, right? So as part of that, that's introduced some really kind of like new challenges for IT over the years, especially now even organizations who have a sort of certain level of maturity are finding themselves not just offering sort of certain applications to a consolidated set of users, but also now having to offer those services wider and wider across the business, obviously with everyone being at home as well, right? So that one of the biggest challenges there for IT is around making sure that access is delegated and it is secure, and we'll go through what some of those options are, and then also making sure that existing technology sets, and what we'll be talking about today would be something like Intune, which is obviously part of your EM&S offering, and how some of those elements can obviously help influence the sort of distribution of applications, as well as making sure that the services that you're providing on the other end to that person is obviously secure, safe, and managed, which is obviously the big thing, because we're seeing more and more organizations, as I said, having to delegate stuff out. Sometimes the lack of control or the fear of a lack of control can obviously sort of, be quite stifling. In terms of some of the deployment considerations, if you're going to go down this road with something such as Intune, we've got this idea between MDM and MAM, and how those two things balance out. It depends on your strategy. Typically speaking, within an Intune environment, the minute a device is enrolled into your service through either the means of a sort of BYD experience or an enrollment, that device is typically a sort of personal device. Intune sees these devices as personal devices off the bat. You can mitigate that. So you can do things like import some IBI numbers in terms of your corporate devices to start identifying